Welcome everyone, my name is Luca and this is my good friend Marco.
Hey, welcome! You are about to form a new random access memory. And today's memory is about slow traveling. In fact, the topic of today will be the experience that I had going by bicycle from Borlänge to the east coast of Sweden in Gävle. During this travel, I was alone and my only mean of transport, my only technology was the bicycle. So all the energy that it took me from Borlänge to Gävle was actually animal energy, my own muscular power. I just want to share the emotions and the thoughts that I had during this journey and hopefully encourage you to travel slowly, to travel, I would say low tech, but I had my cell phone, so I was connected all the time. Actually, the good thing of traveling by bicycle, it's not only the slow speed that allow you to suck in much more details, but also the fact that you can easily stop wherever you like without the need to find parking. There is a certain happiness when you can travel without actually consuming much energy or relying on someone else, like a driver of an airplane, for instance. When you can really just see the landscape and travel through the landscape in total freedom, in total liberty. The peculiarity of this cow was that it was the only one which noticed me. Actually, I shoot this photo with a very powerful zoom, so I was pretty distant, and you can see that all the other cows were just lying down on the ground and relaxing and didn't notice me at all. But this particular one noticed me and started to stare at me with this look that looks a little bit concerned, actually. And I think it's interesting because this cow is obviously really different from the animal that we could find in nature before domestication. In fact, this cow is very thin. You can see many bones, and she has very enlarged mammary glands. So it means that is optimized to produce milk. And so, in a sense, it's not a natural animal, but it's strongly edited by artificial selection. By contrast, further on, I found this other cow that look much more similar to the animal that you could find in nature. But going back to this cow, the interesting fact is that probably her ability to spot me, even though I was a small detail in her own field of view, was determined by the ancient need of her ancestor to spot predators. And thus, to see such a natural behavior in an animal that is so strongly removed from his natural function, that is so strongly edited, make me think about how complex the world is and how difficult it is to understand. Another thing that you tend to ignore when you are traveling by car is the flowers. And this is because for some reason, the flowers tend to cluster close to the street. So really close to the line between the asphalt and the grass, there is where you find the most density of flowers. Along the road, there was also a pig farm. And let's say that in general, because they are full of mud and I don't know, I think the pigs are not pretty in themselves, but actually when they are included in a nice landscape, like this pig that was surrounded by flowers, they can be a cheerful sight to behold. A very beautiful feature of the Swedish landscape at this latitude is the quantity of water, like the sheer number of rivers and of lakes gives the panorama this characteristic mirror look that you find in so many places. This was the river that led to Dala Husby, which was my first destination where I went to sleep. Inside the river, there was this island. So there was one arm of the river on my side and one arm of the river on the opposite side. And the interesting fact about this island is that the variety of the tree inside the island was much higher than in the rest of the landscape. In fact, as you can see, you have low bushes and you have different, not only pines, but you have a mix of different types of trees. And this look, although I cannot think that the island is actually wild, these aspects of variety of plant give this island an idea of wilderness. So I wonder if they are really the spirits of the forest, like the nymphs and the spirits. I guess they live here in this island. The place where I spent my first night was this wooden hut. It was a very tiny wooden hut on 2 floors, really nearby the river, like perhaps 20 meters from the river. And it was in the garden of a house. And it was very rough. Actually, I chose it because it was the cheapest option. And as you can see, it's basically unfinished wood, but somehow it was very cozy and it gave me a feeling of achievement. It was the first day of travel. After all, I made around 40 kilometers. Unfortunately, the only local supermarket, a very small neighborhood supermarket, closed before I even arrived to the village. And so, luckily, I had this instant macaroni cheese with me, which were my dinner. After the dinner, because I didn't have anything to do and because the light was really pretty, with the sun that finally emerged from below the clouds, I set out with my cell phone to take some pictures. And here is where I sat. I light 2 candles, as you can see in the picture, and I sat down to write down the comments to the pictures I took during the day. The morning after, when I woke up, I felt as if somebody with a hammer hit me all over every joint of my body for the whole night. And after opening my eyes, I realized that 40 more kilometers were to come. The weather till this point have been variable. It went from serene with blue skies dotted with clouds till quite overcast. But sometimes it was able to create these effects where most of the landscape is in shadow, but you have some golden spots where the sunlight falls. And this created a very nice atmospheric effect. The further I went on, the more remote and the more desolate the landscape was looking. And I went in places that were so remote that was actually difficult to find water. And thus, even though a perfectly blue sky would have been more cheerful, I was really glad that the sky was often overcast, because it allowed me to sweat a little bit less and thus to need less water. When I reached the following town, it was lunchtime. The name of the town, it's difficult to pronounce, and I will avoid not to offend the people who live there. But it was close to a large lake, and there was this nice mini golf where they also serve hamburger with mashed potatoes. Initially, I had asked for chips, for French fries, but they don't have the frying machine, and they had instead a large pot full of mashed potatoes. And when you buy hamburger or hot dogs, they will just put some mashed potatoes in the microwave and heat it up for you. There was a considerable number of activities in the lake, mainly sports activities and people going in a boat for leisure. And there was also the statue of this creepy old man in the lake. I don't know who put it there, and it doesn't seem so much good taste. But yeah, without a powerful zoom, you cannot see it as well as I saw it, let's say. A side effect of when you are using a zoom is that you flatten the photograph. So it's sort of, you cancel the perspective. of objects that are very close and very far. And thanks to this effect, you can actually, in this picture, appreciate the scale and the majesty of the trees that were surrounding the lake. In this part of the trip, I went in the places with the lowest population density I ever behold in my eyes. Actually, you can see in this picture that aside from the electric lines in the background, there is only one human-made construction, only one building, and it's abandoned. So usually in all this landscape, there is absolutely nobody. Over time, going ahead, the road stopped being paved with asphalt or tarmac and became simply a mud road. And from here on, this was the soil on which I was traveling. The wheel of my bicycle were not optimized for this, but the mud was really stable and really strong, and so it was still enjoyable, the ride. The Swedes tend to have a taste for old caravans and old cars, and even though this particular one is French, many Swedes own and use very old American cars. It's interesting because sometimes it looks like the old American cars reflect the personality of the owner. When I saw this car, actually the owner was really young and really troubled. He didn't look happy at all. Like he looked sort of angry. I was even afraid to have taken the photo by the way he looked at me. But later on in the travel, when I saw this car, the owner was actually like 50 years old and very cheerful and very proud of his car, and just smiled at me for having taken the photo. The next place that I reached, where I went to sleep, it was really near the lakeside, and there was a platform where it was possible to swim in the lake, and I did so. The water was a bit cold, but it was truly spectacular. And I also celebrated with some chocolate, like Kinder chocolate, that is very popular in Italy. And this gave me the possibility to have something really familiar in a place that was very new for me. Also, the second day, the nearest supermarket was too far. And again, my dinner consisted in instant pasta. But here, I really want to speak in apology of instant pasta, because this meal is actually the symbol of freedom. It's extremely cheap. It takes little space in your bag. It takes little weight, and it offers you a meal, even if you are in a remote and thus stunningly beautiful location. Around the lake, the silence was supreme. And then at some point I heard the noise of an airplane buzzing up in the air, and thankful to the zoom of my Canon, I was able to take this picture. The lake was separated by the wooden huts where I was going to sleep by this sort of bridge. Like the lake started before, but there were a lot of canes, a lot of plants that were growing in the shallow waters. This is the wooden hut where I went to sleep, and yeah, you guessed right, the one on the left was the toilet. In the evening, as the day before, the sky became more sunny because the sun literally went below the layer of clouds, and the fact that the owner had some horses and that they were free to roam in the sort of forest, I would call it, around where the houses were, gave a especially dreamy atmosphere to the place. Given a sufficient zoom, the cloud really show for what they really are. Like their contours, their borders become so hazy that they really show as a water vapor, which is what at the end of the day they are. I don't know what this bird is. It looks a little bit like a seagull actually, but I choose to show this photo because it reminds me of the photo of the airplane that I took before. This aquatic plant does not try to raise the leaves above the water level. Actually, the leaves are kind of floating, but for some reason, maybe to disperse the smell better, the flower has a thicker trunk, let's say. I don't know how to call it in English, but it's able to look up and to go out of the water. The photo is not special in the sense that the subject is not special, but the reflection of the cloud, so the fact that you have two opposite clouds and the colors in general, reminds me of the paintings of Dali and of Magritte. While I was taking pictures, a large group of wild goose started swimming in the lake next to the pier where I was standing. And I start to think that the goose are very similar to dinosaurs. So if you change the goose into sort of aquatic dinosaurs, they would be more fascinating, let's say, at least for me. The following day, I didn't have as much kilometers to do as the first 2 days. And I start finally to go toward Gävle, which was my destination. So after a few kilometers of dirt road, I started to perceive that I was returning to the civilization. And the civilization comes with some oddities that would be completely unexplainable in the natural world, but nevertheless can be beautiful with the correct interpretation. I was struck by this warning sign. Usually when we have this triangular warning, is because you are supposed to see this animal crossing. So here, instead of having a deer or a porcupine or whatever, a gazelle, we have an airplane. And I'm wondering if airplanes might be crossing the street. And yes, they certainly do, but yeah, you never know. After some time, it was about lunchtime, and I had this pizza for lunch. Nothing really special, but yeah, it was food. And I got this drink that we don't have in Italy, called Trocadero. I don't even remember the taste, honestly. The following part of the travel doesn't have any picture. Actually, I went through a street that was cutting a lake, a large lake, in half. So I had water both on my right side and on my left side. And it was actually beautiful, but a thunderstorm was coming and I was too scared. And I was so scared that I just reached my next destination, which was close. I reached the destination really fast, and I basically took refuge in the next destination, also with my bicycle inside to protect it from the rain. Toward the end of the day, the rain stopped, and I went out for some pictures, and I didn't dare to take the bicycle because I was afraid for the rain. So I didn't find anything interesting, except the fact that it was full of slugs everywhere. And honestly, I find them deeply disgusting, but still I had to take one picture just not to be unfair with all the other animals and to give an unbiased view of the travel. Given the proximity of the next supermarket, this time I was in a larger town, I really did my best to have a decent dinner, at least one that was better than my usual instant pasta. And given the fact that there was a Google Home, I could play some good music during my dinner. A peculiar thing of the guest house where I was, except from the sheer number of beds, even though I was alone in there, was that there was this ball, like this sort of stroboscopic light, which went along very well with the music. After a good sleep, the next morning I was on my bike again, and this time I was ready to enter in Gävle, the city of Gävle. And yeah, on the street I found these two horses, and I just took a photo of them because they have a nice raincoat. When you enter a city and you do not use the main entrance, so you enter from a back ways or from the bicycle path, you always see some parts of the cities that you are not supposed to see. I mean, they are an uncommon sight, let's say. I immediately went to my bed and breakfast to drop my backpack and to empty the saddlebags of the bicycle before to have a visit of the city of Gävle. In general, I don't think the city was particularly special. And in some sense, it was even a bit disappointing, as it was not directly on the seaside, but was more like a lagoon. It was not on the coastline, it was a little bit inside. Nevertheless, the lagoon smelled like the sea, and that gave me a sense of being arrived to my destination. And perhaps the most special thing of being in Gävle is the fact that the city is a little bit larger compared to Borlänge, and especially is much, much larger than all the small towns that I went by during my travel. So the fact that I reached the city felt like an achievement, like the fact that I was in a urban environment, that there were statues and there were larger buildings and street with peoples around, and the ancient buildings, like buildings from the 19th century and before. All of these made me feel that I reached my destination. And when you move by bike, this is really a sense of achievement that is very important. And of course, being in a town comes with some unique perks, like this halloumi burger. So there was no meat, but there was the halloumi cheese with the spicy avocado and chips with a special cheese sauce with bell peppers and onions. All in all, it has been an amazing journey. So I really suggest you also to travel by bike if possible. I mean, provided that there are not too many slopes or there is not too much rain, I think is the best way of traveling possible, especially today, because at the end of the day, as long as you have a cell phone in your pocket, you are always connected if you want to, and you can also be alone and take some time for yourself. So it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you very much.
We wish you a happy week.
And to see you next week with a new random access memory. Stay frosty and safe.